We chose the Appalachian Mountains because they felt endless. Miles of forest, narrow trails, cutting through trees older than any of us, the kind of place where the world feels quieter and farther away. There were 5 of us, all friends from college, all convinced this hike would be something we'd laugh about years later. I brought my camera and my diary. I wanted to remember everything, the views, the campfires, the stupid jokes we'd make once we were exhausted and filthy. The first day gave me exactly that. Sunlight filtered through the trees in soft beams. The trail was challenging but manageable. We joked about horror stories set in these mountains, laughed about how people always imagined something watching from the trees. That night, we sat around the fire, tired and happy, the forest alive with normal sounds. Crickets, wind, leaves shifting. Nothing felt wrong. The second day started the same way, but by the afternoon, something changed. It wasn't dramatic, just a feeling like the trail had subtly turned against us. The forest felt denser, quieter. My camera lens kept fogging even though the air wasn't cold. That's when Evan started acting strange. At first it was small things. He'd fall behind, then suddenly laugh to himself. Not quietly. Sharp bursts of laughter that made us turn around. When we asked what was funny, he'd blink and say, "You don't remember?" Then shrug it off. Later, during a break, he told a story about the first night, about a man who joined us by the fire, sat just outside the circle of light. He described him in detail. None of us remembered that. We told him he was tired. He smiled too wide and said, "That's not what he said." That night, I wrote everything down. The forest didn't sound the same anymore. The insects were gone. The darkness between the trees felt thicker, like it was absorbing the firelight instead of reflecting it. Evan sat across from me, staring into the woods, whispering under his breath. I caught pieces of it. Names I didn't recognize, places we hadn't been, stories about things that walk wrong in the mountains. On the third day, one of us didn't show up. His tent was still there. His boots were lined up neatly outside, but the inside was empty, like it had never been used. No signs of struggle, no tracks leading away. Evan wasn't surprised. He just nodded slowly and said, "That happens." Panic set in after that. We argued about leaving, about whether we were lost, about how the trail didn't look the same as it had the day before. My camera stopped working sometime that afternoon. Every photo I took came out blurred, except one. A picture of Evan, standing too far away, too close to the trees. By the fourth day, there were only 3 of us left. And Evan was barely recognizable. He talked constantly now, holding full conversations with someone who wasn't there. He laughed at jokes none of us heard. He told stories about me, things I had never told him, moments I didn't remember living. He said the mountains liked stories. That night, I heard screaming from the woods. It stopped suddenly. In the morning, I was alone. Or so I thought. I packed my things in silence, hands shaking, my diary heavy in my bag. I didn't know where the trail had gone. The forest looked the same in every direction. By evening, I collapsed and set up my tent without caring where I was. I didn't sleep. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps, slow, wet, heavy. Something brushed against the side of the tent. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure it could hear it. Then the zipper moved, just slightly, enough for moonlight to spill inside. I looked up. Evan stood there, or what was left of him. He was covered in red, thick, dark, clinging to his clothes and skin. His eyes were wide, shining, locked onto me with an expression I'd never forget. Not anger, not hunger, joy. He smiled slowly, stretching his mouth too far, and tilted his head like he was listening to someone behind him. "They liked your stories," he said softly. "Now they want you to finish one." The forest went completely silent, and something stepped closer behind him. Closer. They chose the Appalachian Mountains because it felt symbolic. One last trip before the wedding. One last stretch of quiet before life became busy and loud and full of expectations. Just the two of them, driving deeper into the mountains with the windows down, the air cool and clean, the forest rolling endlessly on both sides of the road. They laughed a lot that first day, talked about the ceremony, the guest list, the little house they planned to buy. When they stopped for the night, they found a small clearing just off the trail, perfect for a tent, close enough to the trees to feel secluded but not unsafe. Nothing about the place felt dangerous. That was the problem. The next morning, while her boyfriend gathered firewood, she wandered a little farther into the trees. That's when she saw it, something half buried beneath leaves and dirt near the roots of an old tree. A diary. The cover was worn, edges soft from use, the pages warped as if it had been exposed to rain more than once. She hesitated before picking it up. It felt personal, intimate, like touching something that didn't belong to her. Curiosity won. She sat on a fallen log and began to read. The first pages were harmless enough. Notes about a hiking trip, friends, campsites, descriptions of the mountains, how endless they felt, how quiet they could become at night. The handwriting was rushed but careful, like someone desperate not to forget. Then the tone shifted. The writer talked about the forest listening, about stories being traded for safety, about someone named Evan. At first just a friend, then something more. Someone who knew things he shouldn't, someone who laughed at the wrong moments. She felt goosebumps rise along her arms. The last pages were worse. No sentences, no explanations. Just the name Evan written over and over again, darker each time, the pen digging so hard into the paper it nearly tore through. Some pages were soaked, warped, stained with something brownish red. She snapped the diary shut. Her boyfriend smiled when she showed it to him. Not a wide smile, just a small one, like he found it amusing. "Probably some guy messing with people," he said. "You always find the creepy stuff." That night, he laughed in his sleep. Not softly, not like a dream. It was sharp, sudden, like he'd heard something funny whispered right into his ear. The next day, he changed. It was subtle at first. He walked a few steps ahead of her on the trail, muttering under his breath. When she asked what he said, he looked confused, then laughed like the question itself was a joke. He started telling stories she didn't recognize. About a group of friends. About a camera that stopped working. About a man covered in red who stood outside a tent and smiled. When she told him to stop, his smile lingered too long. That night she woke to find him sitting upright, staring into the trees beyond the firelight. "Who are you talking to?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away, then he said it casually, comfortably. "Evan." Her stomach dropped. She laughed nervously, telling him that name was from the diary, that it wasn't funny anymore. He turned to her slowly, eyes reflecting the fire in a way that made them look unfamiliar. "He says you read too much," he said. "He says stories like to be remembered." She didn't sleep after that. By morning, his footprints circled the campsite, dozens of them, like he'd walked around and around all night. He didn't remember doing it, didn't remember laughing, didn't remember talking. but he kept smiling. By the second night, the forest went quiet. No insects, no wind, just the sound of someone else breathing beyond the edge of the firelight. She packed their things while he watched, humming softly to himself. When she begged him to leave, he laughed, sharp and familiar now, and tilted his head. "He says it's almost done," he told her. "He says you should write things down. That's how it works." She ran. She doesn't know how long she ran or where the trail went. She only remembers the sound of footsteps behind her, not chasing, just keeping pace. When she finally collapsed, the diary was in her hands again. The last page was blank, until a name began to appear. Not written by her, not written at all, just pressed into the paper slowly, deeply, as if something invisible was carving it from the other side. Evan. And somewhere in the mountains, someone laughed, happy to be remembered again.